welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Jake Didinsky, professional DJ, producer, event promoter, non-profit CEO, and podcast host of the Lobo podcast. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. When I found and saw that you guys reached out, I got like really excited because I think what you're doing is like particularly cool, and I'm always trying to help people. So this is pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Awesome. Awesome, Jake. So, for the audience, Jake, if we want to understand, with so many experiences, so many things that you do, for the audience, who is Jake Didinsky if they want to understand in a nutshell?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think Jake Didinsky is like a three-pronged approach, right? The first one out the gate is obviously I'm a professional DJ. I play music. And that's what most people know me as. Like, right, I often tell people my job is to show up places and press buttons, sometimes not even that well, just making people think I played them well. That's what's important, right? So secondly, Jake Dinsky is a massive sports fan. I am a huge, huge, huge soccer fan, as you can see. So like I've been watching the Women's World Cup, so I've been up really, 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 really late here in America to cover that Women's World Cup. So I used to do sports journalism as well. And then third, I think most things people will realize about me is that underneath all that DJ stuff is the harder parts of the fact that I have a debilitating, life-threatening chronic illness, that I am non-binary, that I am very LGBTQ, but that overall I'm just a person who loves to make music and make people happy and try to help where I can.
Right, right. So, are you a DJ more or a CEO more or an activist more?
So it's funny, right? Because people always ask me, like, Jake, you have limited energy with the mitochondrial disease. How do you manage to do all these things all at once, right? Like, because people are like, we can't manage one thing. How can you manage to do all these things? And the way I answer it simply is lots of help, lots of support, surrounding yourself with an incredibly talented team who will lift you up, but most importantly, knowing when to like say no, right? Like because I get inundated with requests all the time, but mostly I would say um from a career standpoint, right? Like it's DJ and producer first because that's how I make most of my money, but because I have that platform, right? I was able to spin that off into being and having our nonprofit, and on because now we have those other platforms, we can use that for activism. So I'd say it's a combination of all three. The one thing I'm not good at, though, since this entire podcast is really about how to overcome obstacles, is one of the things you have to overcome in life is acknowledging where your faults are, right? And I know where I struggle personally. I think a lot of people would agree is having a work-life balance, right? Because for me personally, right, I spent the last 4 or 5 years working so hard to get to where I am that I've neglected like my personal life. So now I'm going to backtrack and reminding myself that even though I'm a public figure, so to speak, I also have to have my own personal life too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And but my question is even bigger here to manage so many things in spite of the health issues. Even before the show, you were talking about, that the last 1 week had been a bit difficult, different in terms of health. So, how do you manage it? Even with perfect health, people are not even managed. Some men sometimes find it so difficult to manage even one thing that they do. How
Yeah.
do you do that? And it's not only today, it's been for a long time that you have been managing, overcoming one thing or the other. Tell us about that part so that people can learn more about life from you, that they don't get disheartened from problems and that they need to overcome life and live it to the full as time goes by. Maybe
Sure.
not like Jake, but to learn something from Jake and live with that much of courage, face obstacles courageously, live life courageously.
Yeah. So you know, first and foremost, I believe your show takes place like you're from India, right? Like if I remember that
Yes,
correctly. So,
yes, yes.
one of my favorite places to visit, by the way. I love it over there. And so one of the things I got to do while I went over there once was I got to visit some of the ashrams and visit some of the gurus' places over there and kind of just like go around the country, right? And what I took from that, because I've traveled the world a lot, is that at least here in America, we have a kind of a different view on what the world is like, right? Versus what the rest of the world kind of views the world as. When I was growing up, I decided because I've had this condition since I was a kid. I was born with it. I'm high functioning, so I knew I had it as a kid. I knew I was different in high school and middle school, but I decided very early that I was going to not let this medical condition define me as a person. Right? That whenever a doctor or a teacher told me, "Well, you can't do this because you have condition," I said, "Well, actually, I can. I just need some accommodations. Watch me." I was not going to be defined by something that I didn't choose to have. Did it make things harder for me? Sure. Did I care? No. Like, I mean, that's what we're talking about here, right? Because when I get asked all the time, like, how have I managed living with this condition? It's hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It is so hard. If I can just be real with you here for a minute, AJ, because I feel like I want to be like open and honest with you and your podcast viewers. Like, you can see I still have some of my scars here from like my most recent hospital visit, and like yeah. So previously to this show, actually, I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to wake up on time because I was just so exhausted from the hospital. But ultimately, um, what I've been able to do is surround myself with a support system who cares so much about me and cares so much about what we're doing, that understands my condition, that you know they don't let me put myself into a place where I'm going to hurt myself, right? One of the things that I think people sometimes think about people with medical conditions to begin with is, if I can't see it, it's not real, right? Like if you look at me, I look like just a normal 30-year-old, right? You wouldn't be able to guess off the bat that underneath, nothing inside my body works right. Just to give your viewers a little bit of a definition, not to get too deep into the medical weeds here, but mitochondrial disease, basically what it means is that, we all know from biology cast that mitochondria cells are in everything in the body and, powerhouse of the cell and provide 95% of the body's energy. But when they don't work right, that inherently means that nothing in your body works right, which can make it slightly difficult, for your body to work. So then people go, well, wait a minute, wait, time out, time out, time out. So you have low energy, you can get sick easily, you have a weak immune system, and somehow you've managed to parlay all of that into traveling the country and the world, pressing buttons every weekend for 5 or 6 hours at a time on low sleep and traveling. And I said, yep, that sounds right. They're like, are you insane? And I'm like, no, I'm doing what I love, because that's what life is for me, right? Is that I could have just as easily sat around and let my medical condition define me, but that's not what I wanted to do. And I wasn't going to just be a statistical, numerical number in the system. I wanted to show and believe that I continue to show every day that yes, my medical condition is a part of me. It does get worse day by day. I mean, even when I went through that hospital visit the past 7 days, the day I got out, I went and DJ'd in Washington, D.C. Was that the smartest decision in the world? No, probably not. But when I got there, my team had already laid out a plan for me to succeed, in that we agreed I would only play for an hour, no more, and that if I looked like I wasn't feeling it or that I wasn't like handling it well, that they would pull me and I would go back to the hotel. And so when I say that living with the condition isn't a one person job, it just isn't, right? Because what I've essentially had to do is build this support team that has spent so much time getting to know me and getting to learn about my condition, that it is hard. I mean, but that's also, and I know I'm going on a long tangent here, but there's also a darker side of this, right? Which is like the mental side. It's hard. Like I've seen a lot of my friends die. It just has been a lot of my friends who have had my condition have passed away. And as you get older, my condition gets worse. So I think when you ask me, like, the overall question of how, I think it's that I want someone out there who may have any condition and think that, well, I can't do anything or I can't do this, is to maybe see this one day and be like, well, actually, no, you can. You can ever, and this goes for anybody, by the way, medical condition, no medical condition, regardless of your skin, race, color, creed, sexuality, doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want to do. Sometimes you just got to go out there and create it yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely, Jake. I was listening to your words, every word, and it is, it. You are telling it with a lot of understanding of life, seen life on the ground. Look at it, fight it, live it, every moment of your life. For the viewers, for the audience, I want to understand, Jake, is that how do you, where do you get all this motivation from such an early age? Because dealing with the illness, dealing with problems, and then looking up to the future with hope. One problem, and a lot of people just lose hope, especially a lot of young generation. I want your words to reach out to them. They will understand perhaps much more of your words, because you are also very young, and you are the voice of a lot of people in the US, in the outside, in the Western world, and I'm sure a lot of people know you. You are the leader of today. So help us understand, how do you keep yourself motivated? How do you look at all the difficult times, all the obstacles, and still look at a bright future?
You know, um, it's a tough question, right? Because I would love to sit here and tell you that I was always the person that I am now, but the truth is that I'm not. Like when I was younger, there were some dark days, like when you are a high schooler or you are a middle schooler, and you can clearly tell that you are different from all the other kids, but you can't quite tell why yet because you haven't processed it. Like you go to gym class and you want to play basketball with everybody else, but your energy level just may not be there some days. When I was, for example, like in eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th grade, I was like 40 pounds and 4 feet tall. I had a feeding tube. Like high school kids can be vicious in America. They just can. And so bullying is a thing that happens. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it doesn't. Those days were hard. They just were. But um, all of those struggles, right? All of that hardship that I had to go through helped create the bedrock for what is now me as a person, right? I tell people, and you bring it up, right? Because some people, they get hit with one problem and they're like, they throw their hands up and they go, well, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do with my life anymore. Here's what I tell them: life is always consistently about facing challenges, facing problems. And every single time you face one, you face two forks in the road. You can say, screw it, throw your hands up and go down that path. Or you can say, you know what, this sucks. There's no way to make it not suck, but I'm going to, pick up my boots and plow ahead, right? Now, that does not mean, for example, if you're struggling with like mental health, that you suck it up, right? That means that maybe you go and get the help you need. But when I say suck it up, it means, let's take COVID, for example. COVID happened right at the start of my DJ career. We had just started my event. We were on the road. We were rolling, right? Like all of our staff, we knew what was coming. We were just like right on the cusp of getting to being fully professional, and everybody was going to be set. And then something that we had no control over derailed it entirely. And then when I say derailed it entirely, I mean like straight up just said, "Ha, that we see what you're doing there. That's cute." Yeah, no. So I was in my room like a couple days after the whole world shut down, realizing I now have no income because all I do for work is press buttons. And in order to press buttons in rooms full of people, there have to be allowed to be rooms full of people. That's usually a key component. And so my friends and my staff and my co-partner and owner, like they knew I was distraught. And they kicked my door and they said, okay, Jake, none of this sitting around like being sad, woe is me crap. Like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna survive this? And so we launched a plan to just bring the event online and do it on Twitch. And so we started doing weekly DJ sets on Twitch. And then once a month, we would do a live stream that would like raise charity or raise money for charity on Twitch so that we could continue to raise money for other nightlife workers who were struggling. And that was what I mean when I say we could have just said, well, that's the end of Lobo, but it wasn't. We reinvented. Here's a good thing, right? People will always say, well, don't reinvent the wheel. Well, sometimes the wheel done broke, you got to fix it, right? And so when you ask me, how do I overcome and how do I stay hopeful? I gotta tell you, in today's world, especially, it gets really, really hard. And I don't know, AJ. I imagine a lot of your viewers are India based, right? So, I want to take a moment. But you said that's correct. Like a lot of your viewers are India based.
It's a lot outside also in the US,
Cool.
Canada, Australia, Germany,
Nice.
Britain. All these places have quite a bit of viewership. Some places, some of the platforms, the outside viewership is more, but obviously, yeah, a lot of Indian audience is there.
So I want to talk a bit for a moment, just to like your younger audience, if that's okay, because I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
sometimes,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So I feel like sometimes the younger generation, regardless of where you live, India, USA, America, like Australia, it doesn't matter, right? We've all been in that younger generation at some point in our lives, and we've all kind of faced these similar challenges that I'm sure you guys are going through right now, which is, well, the world is going crashing and burning around us. How can I possibly continue to be hopeful? And we've all kind of always looked for that answer, right? To try to get us through that. For my parents, I think it was the ozone layer. Like, for their parents, they had like 2 world wars, right? We've all gone through these sort of generational things. If you're out there and you're younger and you're looking around saying, well, I can't possibly like do anything or make an impact. I just want to tell you, you absolutely can, right? If you see a place in the world where you think, well, this can be better, and you're screaming and you're shouting and no one's listening to you, and you just feel like you're yelling into a void, fill the void. Literally, be the void, like fill it. That's what we did. That's how our event started. We saw a crowd in a community that didn't have a space, so we made one. Um, I know personally, people always ask me, right? Like you said at the show, started the show. I didn't always do DJing. I also worked in politics. And I try not to always get political because I think everybody's entitled to their own opinion to an extent, right? As long as you're not trying to kill people, do whatever you want, right? But I also think it's important to note that this planet that we live on, it's a shared living experience for all of us, right? And that just because one country has this and one country has that doesn't mean that this country will always have this and that country will always have that. And that when we're long gone, our kids and their kids will still have to live here. And so when you ask me how I try to find hope in the future, it's the messages we get after events from people telling us, hey, I didn't really ever have a friend group until I came to your event and I found one. Or it's people reaching out and saying, hey, you inspired me as someone with a disability to go and fight for disability rights where I live. Um, that being said, I want to touch on the other major question you asked me, which was, where do I get motivation from, right? Because there have been many times when I've wanted to just myself throw in the towel and say, this just isn't it anymore. So this is really a three-pronged answer. First, uh, my friends, right? Like my entire close friends group on many occasions has been there where I have cried and screamed many a nights. When I first started my DJ career, people wouldn't actually book me because they said your music is great, you're talented enough. We just don't like the way you look or that you're non-binary, so we're not going to book you. And I kind of said, to hell with that. That's why we created our own event. We're like, you don't like it, fine. See you in 3 years when you want me back, and my price will double. I learned at a very young age, growing up in North Philadelphia, uh, growing up being raised by my grandmother, who instilled in me that hard work is what matters, right? And that success is not always measured in how much money you have or, if you're wearing the most expensive things, right? Success is measured in the eye of the beholder. So she inspired in me that anything good in life takes hard work. And so that, plus being from Philadelphia, and anyone from Philadelphia will tell you we are very proud that we are from Philadelphia. It's that, we're a blue collar city. We work, we scratch, we fight, we claw. And so my motivation came strictly from knowing that I had this medical condition. I didn't know how long I had to be here, but I damn well was going to make sure that with the little time that I did have here, I was going to leave the world in as good of a place as I could. And I think that that was what I try to tell you each day is that, there are some days, there really are, where I just don't want to get out of bed. I really don't. Like, where I would just prefer to wake up and not have a medical condition, where I would just like to be a normal person, so to speak, right? But then there are those days when I get up and I'm like, this medical condition may suck, but it makes me different, makes me unique. Having autism may suck, but it makes me think different. As my friends often joke with me, I'm playing four-dimensional chess while other people are playing checkers, And I think that in a lot of ways, my motivation strictly comes out of a place of wanting to really just do good.
I get it. I get it, Jake. I want to understand from you. Uh, you always have a, say, deficit of energy because of the conditions that you have, but you have always chosen stuff to do that needs a lot of energy. Professional DJ, event promoter, CEO, podcasting, one work is enough. Where do you get this energy? Why do you do? Anybody in your condition would want to your position would choose to be in a much more, not non-energy sapping stuff. Is it more about Jake Didinsky or is it more about Philadelphia? Uh, you know, uh, motivation or whatever you want to call
Uh,
it.
you know, I often ask myself that exact same question. Like, Jake, what the heck are we doing here? Like, we have an energy deficiency. You can't be working 17 different jobs, right? So, like, here's the deal at the end of the day, right? I am very lucky to get to do what I do, which is I get to literally go around the country and press buttons and make people happy, right? To me, music is a universal language. To me, when I'm out and like say, I don't know, Columbus, Ohio, and I bring in a song that mixes, my style of circuit music with like a Bollywood song, right? Like that's something that I really get excited about. That's something that the fusion of those like genres really makes me get going. But yeah, um, when I first told my doctors, so I think I'm going to be a professional DJ, they said, "Hey, what now?" Because they were like, excuse me, no, 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 you are not. I'm like, well, I why not, right? And they're like, okay, we're gonna get behind this for now, but there's gonna be some like changes we're gonna have to go through. So, like, for example, when I DJ, there's always a bucket of ice in the booth because it gets hot, so I've got to ice myself down. You know, all the bars that we go to carry Gatorade so I can stay hydrated. I don't drink, I don't do drugs. So, like, that helps too. But when we talk about why I do all the other things I do, I think part of it is just that I'm ADHD as heck. So, like, it is kind of ironic and humorous that the kid who has the immune energy deficiency also got hit with the hyperactivity condition, which like logistically makes no sense, but here we are. And that also, I just want to experience everything. I am able to, by going on these podcasts, right, get to meet so many cool and amazing people and get to share my story on so many different topics because I have so many lived experiences, right? Like, I think people sometimes forget that, you know, what you see may not be always what's like behind the curtain, so to speak, right? Like, almost I call it Wizard of Oz syndrome. Um, that when you see me walk in, I look like any other like 30-year-old with colorful hair walking around America, right? But underneath, I'm I'm struggling sometimes, you know. I'm also, in addition to running our events and DJ, I run our nonprofit wing, but I'm also the president of the US national team supporters group for DC. So, like, you know, we host the women's and the men's watch parties for soccer. I'm also an avid sports fan, including some of the games that happen overseas, like cricket, which means you got to wake up at ungodly hours if you want to watch the Cricket World Cup or the test matches. Thanks, India, that go on for like 17 days, it feels like, you know. So like I get it, I do. But that's what I think I did, where it's like, you know, I decided again very early that these obstacles that I faced weren't gonna be like you can't, right? It was just gonna be challenging and I'd have to find ways to do it. um Overall though, yeah, the way I really manage it is, I work and then I sleep and then I work and then I sleep and then I sleep and then I work. But now it's becoming a lot more, like I said, team oriented. Everybody always thinks that people who are successful always do it on their own. The answer to that is completely false. Anyone who is successful in any fashion in life at all, whether they realize it or not, by the way, has always had people, again, whether they realize it or not, fighting for them in their corner, sometimes openly, sometimes not, pushing them and carrying them along the way. I would not be here where I am today without every single person in my life who sacrificed in some sort of way to help me get here. And so the reason I push as hard as I do is because if they were willing to take a shot on me, I need to be willing to return the favor and make sure that their time and effort that they put in on me was worth it.
Absolutely. And that is where my next question to you, Jake, is that, you know, in a time when people are talking about self care, taking care of self improvement, everything centering around the self, how did you manage to do everything that is related to others and create that whole spectrum of a good community around you which takes care of you and, as you said, even sacrifice for you? Was it about self or is it about others then?
So I think that when we talk about self care, you can't talk about self care without first acknowledging that self care also includes others, right? As weird as that sounds, I know it sounds weird, but my self care is being able to enrich other people's lives. And so this team that we've built that helps put on these events, you know, I really do consider us a family, right? Like, you know, when we started this event, the event that we run 4 or 5 years ago, I looked at them after the first one. I was like, hey, I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know if this event is ever going to make money. I've never run a business. We all have some sort of nightlife experience, but do you guys just want to like follow me into the darkness here, see what happens, and who knows, maybe we'll do something with it. And all of them, without hesitation, said, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And for like the first year and a half, we all worked for free, right? Like nobody made any money, but it was never about money for us. Never has been. Um, and so when we talk about self care and how we've managed to create this, the first thing is that our event has always been about community first, right? We, any city we go to, we try to make sure we establish roots and really give back to the community. Um, we are always engaging in local issues that matter to these places too, right? Like, even though I don't live in Ohio, our event was registering people to vote in Ohio during this August election. I think that, you know, a lot of times, especially, people will always ask themselves, and this I think is just a humanity problem, right? Well, what do I get out of it? What's in it for me? And I don't think that's how you should look at it. And especially in nightlife, there's a lot of what's in it for me. What can I do to advance myself? We kind of look at nightlife and the world a little differently, which is there are more than enough days, hours, weekends in a year for anybody who wants to work to succeed. And rather than tearing each other down, we need to be building each other up. Because when you tear people down, even though you may take a step forward, all you're doing inherently is actually taking 3 steps back. And I say it that way because what I mean is when everybody succeeds, it's inherently better for all of us, you know? And I explain it in the following way. Let's say that there's a building, we'll call it Club X. And that Club X has 4 parties, one party every Saturday, 4 times a month. If I have a party at Club X every second Saturday and it's super successful, and the other 3 Saturdays aren't, well, that's great for me, but maybe then that club closes. Counterpoint. If Club X has 4 incredibly successful Saturdays, then all of our events continue to grow and get bigger collectively as a whole because more people are going to every single event and checking out events they might not normally have gone to because Club X is the place to be. And in a lot of ways, you can apply that to life. If I, on my own, am successful, it's great for me, but what does that do for everybody else? But if myself and a community are successful, then we can all go out and help even more people contribute and give to wherever they want to be. And that's kind of how we try to aim for it.
Right, right. There is much to learn from you, Jake. So much to learn, you know, and this is just one podcast. So there is, and you have yourself one podcast of yours. So tell us about your podcast and how people can connect with you, learn from you directly, and also connect with you for as in professionally so that they can get their work done through your company.
Yeah. So our podcast is on hiatus at the moment, unfortunately. We had to, because of so many of the other things we were doing, right? Like we had to put it on pause a bit. But when it comes back, traditionally, it's me. My dad by choice, my brother by choice. We talk a lot about chosen family. That's very important to us in our community. But for people who want to reach out to me, it's always, at DJ Jake Maxwell, like on Twitter, Jake Maxwell usually on Facebook, or Jake Didinsky on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find. Just look for the colorful haired kid, yelling at the soccer game. But ultimately, I think that, you can usually find us on SoundCloud as well at DJ Jake Maxwell. But yeah, I just appreciate the opportunity to come on and like get to share my thoughts and feelings with such a unique audience. And I hope anyone out there who would ever want to go into DJing or just talk in general, like I'm an open book, so I'm always happy to hear from anybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My last question to you, Jake, is this. You are a musician, you know about music, you live your life around music. And the biggest thing is that when there is not much in your life, still you are able to make a lot of music. How can people make music in their lives, look at the future with hope when there is no instrument, no music in their life? What would you like to say that? This is my last question.
So, one thing that I pride myself on is, as I said, like I worked in politics, right? So I'm very well versed in a lot of international relations. I know all about the caste system in India. I've been to India. I know all about how some of the things in the world are not going so great for the younger generation. I know that literally over in America, the world is quite literally on fire, right? Like I get it. Sometimes, sometimes music and other things can seem relatively small in the sphere of world issues that might be staring us down, right? When people say to me, well, how can you just show up and like make music and be happy? Well, my answer is when I'm in a club, right? When you're in a club, whenever you're out in the streets, whenever you're jamming in your car, whatever it is, music makes us feel. Music is a universal language. Music transcends every single major moment throughout human history, more than likely can be connected with a song of some sort, good or bad, by the way. In Italy, for example, Bella Ciao can be connected to the anti-fascist movement during, the Mussolini era. There are many, many songs that I can tell you, about Kent State when that shooting happened here in America. The thing is that if you really look back at any real major moment in history, somehow, some way, music was a part of it. And that's because music heals the soul. But music isn't always, multi-million dollar professionals singing, doing whatever it is they want to do. It is, however, what you want it to be. Music can be tapping on your chest, beating on the drums, the sound of a soccer ball bouncing up and down the street, right? That can beat the drum beat for your next track. Music is all around us, everywhere, anywhere you look. And so it's less about making music in your life and more about accepting music in your life. And all I would say is anybody who wants to make music, just go for it, because no one, even if people don't like what you make, so to speak, it's not necessarily for them. Your art is your art, and you should own that. And that's what matters most.
Wonderful. Wonderful. On this note, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.